So let's talk about generating the big idea. A lot of people might tell you that it doesn't really matter whether or not you're passionate about what you're doing, right? If you are offering a service or a product that people need, then you should run with it and you have the ability to make lots of money. While I do think that that can be true, I am a firm believer that it is much easier to stay dedicated to something when there is a deeper why or passion connected to what you are doing. The things that I'm passionate about, when I know my why and I know why I'm doing them, it's a lot easier for me to show up in the world. As a person who is committed, who's gonna stay up late or wake up early if necessary, who's gonna do what needs to get done, even if I'm not necessarily feeling it that day. It's a lot harder to make yourself do those things when you don't have a deeper why. So I had the opportunity to be featured in Forbes magazine last year, and I gave advice specifically to women who, were looking to start their own businesses and be entrepreneurs, and kind of how to generate that idea. And what I told women, and now what I am telling you all to do, is to create a list with two different columns. In the first column, write down everything that you're passionate about. What do you really care about? Is it social justice? Is it the environment? Is it love and relationship? Is it beauty? Is it art? Is it sports? There's so many different things that we can be passionate about. And I know that for some people, they have a hard time, finding that thing. They're like, okay, Kiara, aka Kiki, that's my nickname. You can call me Kiki because we're friends now. Kiki, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I like some things. I think, I would say to you, what makes you angry or what makes you upset? Because a lot of times when we are trying to discover what we're passionate about, a good indicator is, what gets your blood boiling? What do you see or what do people say or do, that makes you fuels you up, that makes you send that meme or that article to your friend because you're like, I can't take this. I think it's a great place to start when you are thinking about what you're passionate about. What do you enjoy? Forget for a second about just making money, ask yourself the question, what makes you happy? And if you're a person who already knows that, that's amazing. Otherwise, this is probably going to be a space of introspection for you, and I'm going to ask you to pay attention. Every time you go through your day and you smile and you laugh, or every time you get angry, every time you have a really deep feeling about something, ask yourself why you're feeling what you're feeling, and if there's an underlying shadow, I call it a shadow, if there's an underlying reason why you're feeling how you feel. For example, I'll give you some context. I am really passionate about social justice. So when I see people tell stories about ways in which they've been mistreated because of the ways that they were perceived, and how systems have been set up to keep them from, advancing, or if I read a Black woman talking about her terrible experience that she had with a doctor and how the healthcare system has not been set up, for Black women, that kind of stuff really makes me angry. It fuels me. Every time I see something like that, I feel deeply. So if I were you and that happened to me, I'd read that article or that story and ask myself, okay, why do I feel so strongly right now? What is the underlying reason? Is there a passion connected to that reason? So that's a tool to kind of help you, figure out what it is you're passionate about. But do your best and write a list of columns or a list of things that you are passionate about as an individual. In the second list, I want you to write all of your skills out. What are you good at? What do people come to you for? What have people told you that you're good at? Are you creative? Are you, a critical thinker? Are you excellent at math? Do you have an eye for design? Are you organized? Are you a people person? And you don't have to. You don't have to think too deeply about this. What have people told you that you're really good at? Or when friends are calling you and asking you for advice, what are they generally asking you for? Are you great with your hands? Are you great with tools? Do you have, can you sew or crochet, or are you a great singer? Any of the skills that you might have, this is a great place to write that down. It can be helpful to really think about areas where you have training or, areas where you've excelled? Are there awards that you've won? What are your degrees in? What type of skills did you acquire during those processes of acquiring your degree, excuse me. So as you start to think about these different things that you're skilled at and that you're good at, just list them down. And if you have to, ask a friend, what am I good at? Or what would you say that I'm good at? Or are there skills or gifts inside of me that you see that I don't see inside of myself? It's a perfectly fine answer or question to ask somebody. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid to reach out and to ask for help, because sometimes it's a lot easier for someone else to see us more clearly than we see ourselves. And so you have this list of all of these things that you are good at and skilled at, and then you'll have this list of all of these things that you're passionate about. And I want you to look at those lists side by side and see if there are ways in which you can connect what you're passionate about to what you're good at, because your passion will help you find a niche area. It will help you find your industry. It'll be a guiding tool to help you figure out, in what capacity do you want to spend your days. What you're skilled at will help you further narrow down exactly how you want to spend your days. How do you want to show up within that industry? I knew very early on that I loved storytelling and entertainment. I knew that I wanted to do something with, telling stories. I loved movies, I loved books, and so that was in my passion list. And then looking at my skills list, there were so many different things that I could do within that industry. What I'm doing now as an entrepreneur and also as a writer is completely different than what I was doing as an entertainment attorney. It's different than what I've done as like a social media manager. It's all within that same, field of entertainment, all within the same passion. But how I've shown up in that industry is very different. I think it's important for us to think about, because a lot of times you might say, I love sports, or I love fashion, or which is awesome, but there's so many different things that you can do within any given industry. So to the best of your ability, being able to narrow down and pick out, what it is you're good at and what your skills specifically are will kind of help you start to narrow down exactly what service you want to offer. As you start to generate ideas and, compare things in your first list to your second list, and you start to come up with these big business ideas, it's awesome. In this ideating space, this is not really a space to let the editor come in and critique. It's not yet the space to say this isn't logical. When you are ideating, the answer is always yes and. My sister, she's in college, she always tells me that about brainstorming, like, don't ever cut out an idea. She learned that in one of her classes, and I've been implementing it in my own life, which is extremely helpful. You're really just letting the garden grow wild. I could do this, yes, and I could do this, yes, and I'm good at this. Don't think about cost yet. Don't think about all of the reasons why it's not going to work. Just give yourself the space and time to dream. We don't get a lot of that as an adult. So much of what we're taught to do after you reach a certain age has to be logical, right? It always has to make sense. We're not really given the space to just be imaginative and let the garden grow wild. So this is your time to do that. So you will start to create this list, this new list based upon the two that you've created of all these different things that you could do with your business. After you've created your list, look at that list, and this is where the editor starts to come in a little bit, right? Look at that list and ask yourself if you have the degrees or the qualifications necessary to start that particular business, right? So if you want to start a business that requires you to have a specialized degree or specialized knowledge, ask yourself if it's a skill set or a knowledge set that you already have. And if not, are you willing to go get that knowledge? Are you willing to enroll in a course? Are you willing to, take a class or read up on or become an expert in, the field necessary to start that business? If not, those are things that you're going to want to cross off immediately off that list, right? Like if you're trying to be a designer and you don't know, you're passionate about fashion and that you read a lot of magazines and you think you have a creative eye, but you're really not willing to like learn the design space or the design world or the language, then that's probably not a space where you should work. You really have to be willing to do the work. There could be other areas where you feel like you are fully qualified and your life experiences and or your degrees are perfectly in line with what you're doing, and that's awesome. I want to let you know that it doesn't have to be the case. Just because you didn't major in something or because you haven't done it in the past, it doesn't mean you can't do it, but it does mean you're going to have to work extra hard and to catch up, because what you don't want to do is start a business and to offend people. I don't want to say the word, it's probably not the way that you're thinking about it, but you don't want to offend people who have been working in this space by assuming that you are more qualified or better at offering a service when you actually haven't done the work of learning the industry. The best thing that you can do for yourself is to learn as much as possible. If you're young, get an internship. I love internships, okay? I've had so many internships. I interned at Fox, I interned at Disney, I interned at the FCC, I interned at MTV. I was so willing to work for any company, specifically big companies, but any company that I could get my hands on that would give me an opportunity to learn. It is the best way to learn with low stakes. If you make a mistake, that's okay. You're just the intern. You're really there to sit in on meetings and figure out how things are working. And, you know, if you can afford to take an unpaid internship, do that. If you can't afford, I completely understand. It's a privilege to be able to work for free, and not everyone is entitled to that privilege. But if that is something that you can do, I highly recommend it. If you can get an unpaid internship, a part-time unpaid internship on top of a paid job, I highly recommend that as well. Look for people who are doing the types of things that you'd like to do. Try to find a mentor. Just anybody who's done anything in the industry or realm similar to what you're trying to do can be immensely helpful to gain the knowledge that you need in order to enter a particular space. And again, you don't have to be 18 to be an intern. I don't know if you all saw the movie The Intern. It's about like an older man who decides to go intern for a company after he's effectively retired because he wants something to do with his days. And it's a really funny movie, but I also think it's a really, really beautiful message, because so many times we tell ourselves, if I didn't start this at like 20 or 25, you know, I'm done. It's too late. And that is a lie. It is never too late. Some of the most talented people have started their companies later in life, right? They've entered industries later in life. If you are feeling a calling or a push into a new industry, go for it. Trust yourself. You've got this. You just have to be willing to do the work. So don't be afraid to get in there and do the nitty-gritty. Coming up with your big idea is a lot of fun. It is a great process. I want to really encourage you to enjoy this process. You know, starting a business, it's not all about that day when you announce to the world that you're starting a business and you get all of this attention. That day is awesome, your big opening day, but it's only one day. Most of your business is just going to be you. It's going to be you, and it's going to be your mind and your ideas. And so just start to get comfortable with that. Start to get comfortable with being alone and coming up with ideas and sitting with yourself and staring at a piece of paper and allowing yourself to think and not getting frustrated if you start listing things and after you write 2 or 3 things, you're stuck. Sit with it for a little bit. Feel uncomfortable. Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, and force yourself to keep going. Obviously, take breaks. I highly recommend taking breaks when necessary, but don't take the easy way out. You know, really sit with yourself and spend some time coming up with your big idea. Once you started to narrow that idea down into either areas where you do feel like you're fully qualified or willing to go get the knowledge necessary, we're going to start talking about coming up with an idea or sculpting your idea to making sure you're offering a product or service that the world actually needs. So let's jump into the next video.